All right. So now we're going to talk about the features that are located on the edge surface of our part, but I'm not going to do the math for you like I did during the pocket. What I want you to do is I want you to think about what we did to achieve the right width of the pocket, and then implement that here with the dimensions that you have. So, but I am going to tell you that this is a 5/16 wide slot that you're going to be milling, and I'm going to have you do that with a 1/4 inch end mill. Now, the 1/4 inch end mill is going to mean that if you line up to the dead center of the slot, that you're going to have a little bit of stock left on each side of the cutter. So what are we going to be doing? We're going to be roughing, and then we're going to be making an incremental movement that's been calculated, and then we're going to be taking a finish pass, and then we're going to be going to the opposite side of our movement. So we're going to go to the opposite side of the slot, and then we're going to make another finish pass. And what we should end up with is 3 passes, and we should have an end result of a 5/16 wide slot that's a 1/4 inch deep, using a 1/4 inch end mill. All right, so I've edge found the back of the part, or the back jaw, and I've came over the correct distance as we just calculated. So now I'm in the center of the slot. I am down, the spindle is lowered against the spindle lock, and I snugged up the clamp. And now I'm going to raise the table up using the knee until the bottom of the end mill touches the top of the surface, at which point, just like we've done before, I will raise the cutter away from the part, and I will zero out my knee adjustment, and I will raise the table to my desired depth, which is a 1/4 inch depth. And again, this is a 1/4 inch end mill, and we will be milling a 5/16 wide slot, which means there is a 32nd of material that will be on each side of the cutter that we will move in the y-axis after we take our rough cut down the center. And yeah, let's just do this. Adjusting the knee to 0. I will raise the table 250 thousandths. It's 100, 200, and 50. And I'm going to make an RPM adjustment. All right. Definitely lube the surface, lube the end mill. We don't want this aluminum to get gummed up and load up the cutter and break it. So I will be using controlled bursts of air. And I will do my best to feed at a constant feed rate that looks appropriate. If I turn the handle as fast as I can, then I will almost guarantee you will break, or I would break, the end mill. So here we are. I moved the table in the y-axis, so I'm going to give it some cutting fluid. This will be a climb cut coming back. Now I'm going to move positive in the y-axis to cut the back side. I'll go ahead and clear out the chips first. I would definitely not want to add cutting oil with a brush while I was cutting, because it would try to pull the brush into the cutter and possibly your hands as well. Now you can see we have a very, very good finish, and that'll be on both sides of that slot. All right, as you can see, we've loaded up the 45 tool, and we can still see our scribe line right there off the edge of my fingertip, and I position the tip of the tool to be lower enough to where I will only be engaging the part on the actual 45-degree angled surface. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the spindle, I'm going to move the y-axis till we touch the corner, and then I know that from the surface that I'm tapping to the line is 0.125. Now I'm going to move half of that, and I'm going to take a cut, and then I'm going to measure and see how far I am until I get to the line, which is my desired measurement, and then I will adjust the rest and take the cut and be done with this operation. Pretty straightforward. I can see that on my first pass that I went a little bit more than a 1/16 of an inch of my entire eighth, which is 1/16 is half of the eighth. So I know that I only want to move definitely less than 0.06, and from my experience it's telling me that I need to move about 0.05. An 1/8 inch is the distance we wanted, and that's actually pretty good. So we're happy with that. All right, so here we are. We're at the last step, and I've got the corner rounding milling tool in the spindle. Just like many things that you're going to be doing in here, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to lower the spindle down against the stop and then lightly press tension on the spindle lock. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to touch off on this surface of the part with the very, very, very bottom of the cutter. And this is a radius cutter, so if we are, if the bottom surface of our cutter is below the top of the part too far, it'll touch prematurely on the radius surface, which actually isn't the worst case scenario, so we're not going to dwell on that too much, but we're going to touch off somewhere near the bottom of the cutter against this surface here. We're going to reach up and we're going to zero out the readout, and that zero is going to be what we're going to return to as we're cutting our actual radius. But after we zero it, we're going to bring the cutter this direction, and then we're going to raise the knee up because we want to remain against our stop, our spindle stop, until the bottom of the cutter, or the bottom of the radius I should say, where I'm touching right now with my fingernail, lightly touches the top of the part or is very, very close to touching. Either one will be great. And at that point, we will actually just start to move back in the y-axis that we previously zeroed until we get to that zero, and we'll be making passes back and forth in X, and that'll give us our rounded edge. So here's what that looks like. Okay, so first again, I touched my y-axis up top on the bottom of the cutter. I reached up, zeroed out the y-axis, I moved the table away from the cutter, and then I started to raise the knee until I touched with this surface of the cutter against the top of the part. The first time, I kind of touched a little bit heavy, so I actually lowered it, moved the table over, and retouched it again. It took a couple seconds, but this is something you want to definitely ease into. So now I'm going to put some cutting oil on the surface, and we're going to slowly start to work our way in y-axis back to the 0 that I set on the readout.